The world in 1945 was scorched, scars etched into cities, hearts, and histories. The Second World War had consumed every continent, redrawing borders with blood and ash. But with the war's end came the forging of something new, modern civilization, built not on triumph alone, but on trauma, resilience, and radical reinvention. The end of war and the beginning of ideological confrontation. The Allied victory didn't mark universal peace, it marked a fracture. The wartime alliance between the US and the Soviet Union shattered under the weight of divergent worldviews. On one side, liberal democracy and market capitalism. On the other, authoritarian communism and state planning. Each believed their model was the key to a just future. Thus began the Cold War, a decades-long rivalry shaped by arms races, proxy wars, and ideological clashes. Germany was split. Berlin became the epicenter of tension. The Berlin airlift, the construction of the wall, and the NATO versus Warsaw Pact divide created a constant hum of hostility that penetrated every facet of global politics. America and the Soviet Union raced to prove superiority through nuclear arsenals, space exploration, intelligence operations, and cultural influence. The Cuban Missile Crisis brought the world within inches of annihilation. Meanwhile, a new concept emerged: mutually assured destruction. Peace was maintained not by goodwill, but by fear of total obliteration. Decolonization and the rise of new nations. World War II had exposed colonial fragility. European powers were exhausted, and their empires were vulnerable. Independence movements surged across Asia and Africa, fueled by the war's promise of self-determination. India led the way, shedding British rule in 1947. One by one, nations followed: Indonesia, Kenya, Algeria, Ghana, Vietnam. These transitions weren't peaceful. Wars of liberation erupted. Borders were hastily drawn, sometimes without regard to ethnic or historical realities, planting seeds of future conflicts. Yet in every corner of the globe, the spirit of sovereignty bloomed. By the late 20th century, the world map was transformed, a mosaic of newly independent nations, each striving to define its identity. But independence came with complications. Post-colonial economies were fragile, leaders were often inexperienced, and foreign powers still meddled. Some states fell into dictatorship or civil war. Others became pawns in Cold War geopolitics. Nonetheless, the era marked a sweeping shift. Empire was no longer the default. Rebuilding society and shaping collective memory. The physical damage of the war was staggering. Cities like Warsaw, Hiroshima, and Berlin were nearly erased. Europe required vast reconstruction. The Marshall Plan injected capital, but it also embedded American influence in European economies and politics. Japan, too, reinvented itself, transforming from militaristic empire to industrial powerhouse within decades. Collective memory shaped national narratives. In Germany, reckoning with the Holocaust required redefining identity. In the United States, the war was remembered as a fight against tyranny. Yet the contradiction of Jim Crow laws remained unresolved. Japan adopted pacifism, yet struggled with acknowledging wartime atrocities. Memory became politics. War trials like Nuremberg and Tokyo set precedents for international justice. Crimes against humanity entered the global lexicon. The Holocaust seared itself into humanity's conscience, fueling movements for tolerance, justice, and the prevention of genocide. The science of peace and progress. War accelerated technological progress. Atomic research led to both destruction and energy generation. Rocketry ignited the space race. Radar and code breaking gave way to digital computing. Penicillin and mass vaccination ushered in modern medicine. Civil aviation boomed. The same innovations that once served death were now adapted for life. The scientific community became global. CERN emerged. NASA was founded. The Apollo missions culminated in moon landings, a stunning demonstration of peaceful competition. Education and science became Cold War battlefields. Who could build better schools, discover more particles, explore deeper into space? Environmental awareness also blossomed. The brutality of war and the rapid industrialization that followed forced questions about resource use, pollution, and planetary stewardship. By the 1970s, the environmental movement gained traction, linking peace with sustainability. Economic transformation and the birth of globalization. Economies globalized rapidly in the post-war era. Bretton Woods institutions, the IMF and World Bank, were created to stabilize the global financial system. The US dollar became the linchpin of trade. The General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, GATT, began dismantling trade barriers. Multinational corporations emerged. Outsourcing and supply chains connected nations like never before. The rise of consumer culture was immediate. In the West, suburbs sprawled, cars multiplied, and television became king. A new middle class demanded stability and convenience. Brands transcended borders. Fast food chains, fashion houses, and entertainment conglomerates became cultural exports. But inequality persisted. The Global South grappled with poverty, debt, and dependency. Neocolonialism, some argued, replaced colonialism through economic control. Yet others viewed globalization as opportunity. Trade lifted millions out of poverty, enabled cross-cultural exchanges, and accelerated innovation. Social movements and cultural evolution society didn't just rebuild, it reinvented itself. Feminist waves redefined gender roles. Women demanded equal pay, reproductive rights, and representation. Civil rights movements in the U.S. inspired global struggles against racial injustice. LGBTQ+ activism gained momentum, challenging norms and winning visibility. Art and literature responded with intensity. Existentialism flourished. War poetry gave way to introspection. Cinema explored trauma, resistance, and survival, from the Third Man to Schindler's List . Music told stories from jazz and rock to protest songs that fueled change. The counterculture of the 1960s questioned conformity and war. The Vietnam protests shook governments. Students, artists, and intellectuals demanded reform. Religion, too, evolved. Modern theologies emphasized peace, social justice, and dialogue. The legacy of peacekeeping and global governance. One of World War II's most ambitious outcomes was the creation of the United Nations, a symbol of hope, diplomacy, and collective security. With its agencies like WHO, UNESCO, and UNICEF, it tackled health, education, and child welfare. Peacekeeping missions, though flawed, sought to prevent new wars. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948 marked a historic affirmation. Every human being is entitled to dignity. It became a moral compass, shaping constitutions, court rulings, and advocacy. International cooperation expanded through summits, treaties, and institutions. Yet the dream of unity was often tested by conflict, nationalism, and competing interests. Still, global interdependence grew undeniable. Climate change, pandemics, and migration proved that borders could no longer contain problems. Final reflection. World War II shattered the past and birthed a new age, not just politically or economically, but culturally, philosophically, and spiritually. The horror ignited reform. The destruction demanded reconstruction. In its wake rose movements for justice, systems for peace, and revolutions in every domain of human life. And today, though the veterans fade and the ruins are rebuilt, we walk through a world shaped by 1945. In every alliance, every city skyline, every civil liberty, we live among the aftershocks of history's most profound upheaval. After the fire, the world was forged anew.